And the reason I was thinking about grumpy was I thought to myself, I'm going to have to drive home later and it's going to take me 2.5 hours. And I thought to myself, that's a bit rich, because I remember proposing that we actually come here today, and I thought, well, there's not much point in being grumpy about it at this stage. But then whenever actually it sunk in a wee bit more, I was thinking about Mark McGuigan, and I was wondering, we do hear a lot about time scales, and we hear about being able to be, there's time to get here, then there's been treated here, or there's time to bypass here. Can you just give us maybe a wee bit more detail about those timings? Because I will probably be home quicker than if you were going from Garrison up to Delta-Kelvin, and I will probably be right across to the east coast of County Down in that time. So maybe just to give us a little bit of a sense about the timings.
Thank you for that that question, Helen. I suppose the central tenet for us to take this forward through the elective process, etc., has to be the restoration of emergency surgery. And we have two key areas. We have emergency surgery and we have trauma care. Geographically, our demographic determinants put that as a massive challenge for us as a community, a rural community. What happens is, and what is set out, and maybe to put it in context, some of the documentation and the process that we use to deliver services is utilising information and process that's used in Britain that has a different demographic. And in relation to that, distance from hospital, from home to hospital in the UK, 95% of the population in the UK are within 12 miles of an emergency department. When that's broken down further and averaged out, most people are within 4.7 miles in urban areas of their hospitals, and the maximum distances is about 10.9 miles for the rural population. Now, that's exceptionally significant for us for a variety of reasons. What has happened with the removal of emergency general surgery, it has compromised the integrity of our major trauma network. Our major trauma network is, the centre is Royal Victorian Hospital, but it is supported by 8 regional area hospitals that can stabilise patients and then transfer patients in a more stable condition to the Royal. A quarter of those have been removed as a result of emergency general surgery closures in hospitals. Why is that important? It's really important. It's a significant statistic. If you encounter a major trauma episode, if you can get to a major trauma centre within 45 minutes, your survival rates increase by 20 to 25%. That's a very significant improvement in a health outcome. In relation to surgery, emergency surgery, the recommendations are 60 minutes. First developed, there were challenges, absolutely, and rightly so, as to the location and how it would serve the population. But what happened was it went to judicial review ultimately in 2004, and that's where it was established that it was necessary to have the hospital here in order to comply with those recommendations. The fact that we don't make those, we are now seriously challenged. We talk about standards in care. We cannot meet those standards, or we will never meet those standards with the removal of emergency general surgery to what would be considered surgical and major trauma international guidelines. If we're looking at our evidence base, that's what it states. These are international guidelines, accepted practice. In addition to that, we really don't understand, since the removal of emergency surgery, there's a process in emergency care which identifies and records situations that happen and the care patients receive through their patient care journey. It's called TARN. That, unfortunately, became defunct in last year, or July, a couple of years ago, in relation to a cyber breakdown. However, they have reinstituted that and they've got it up and running again. But we can't see any data in relation to that being done here. We don't see any of the data. The last recorded data in relation to this service that I have seen is 2018, 2019. So we're blindly going to go into a reconfiguration of networks of hospitals where we have no data on the emergency cover for a rural population in Fermanagh that can impact 80,000 people. So the travel times are very relevant, and I think when we put it in context and we look at what service provision is given in Britain and what's acknowledged as best practice, I would have to travel 60 miles for access to emergency care. So I think that's clearly outlines, hopefully, Colin, your question, and makes it clear.
Can I just give one tiny clarification, or maybe two actually? The trauma data here has only been collected in the last 2.5 years manually, one man in each hospital, but there has been no data compiled for analysis, no interrogation, so therefore there would be no way to tell if, for the sake of argument, playing devil's advocate, maybe things are brilliant here, maybe trauma outcomes are 10 times better than they were when we had surgeons in our hospital. I don't think they would be, but it's not okay to reconfigure services without checking out the exact level of damage or improvement in all cases in the region. There is no data being collated at the minute. And just before you get grumpy, from Rosslea to Altnagelvin, where Mark lived, takes longer than if you went to Belfast and you went to the new bus station and you said, I'm going to Beaumont Hospital in Dublin.
And Colin thankfully woke up happy this morning because he normally wakes up grumpy. But I get shouted at the last meeting for allowing things to go on too long. So I do want to keep check